Welcome to the Honestly Adoption Podcast, the show that gives hope and insight from real voices on the foster and adoption journey. Pull up a chair. We're glad you could join us. Here are your hosts, Mike and Kristen Berry.
Hey friends, welcome back to the Honestly Adoption Podcast. This is Season 17, Episode 137, and we're actually concluding our three-part series that we've been talking about called Living in Your New Normal, because right now, that's what we're doing with the COVID-19 pandemic. It's changed the landscape of life. We're going to get to that in just a moment, but before we do that, make sure you jump over to our podcast website, honestlyadoption.com. You can follow our podcast there, subscribe, even leave us a review on iTunes. We would love for you to do that. Also, catch up on past episodes, browse our latest resources. It's all over at honestlyadoption.com. And now, on with the show. So we're living in our new normal. Man, it's been about 30 to 40 days since basically the whole globe, the whole world came under quarantine, and it's really changed the landscape of life. In this podcast series, we have talked about the grief process and how to grieve this new normal, the loss of graduation ceremonies, the loss of prom, spring break, seeing friends, normal daily activities. And then in the second week of this series, we talked about adjusting to this new normal. Like, okay, we cannot control this. We cannot stop this. Now we have to adjust. And today, in this episode, we're talking about acceptance. Now it's time to accept that life has changed. Where do we go from here? I mean, accepting is kind of messy with this because we're talking about kids who have a trauma history and really a lot of kids who have the inability to accept a new normal.
Well, I think it's really important that we point out the fact that all of us are having trouble accepting things that are out of our control. That's everybody. That's people who have experienced significant trauma as well as people who haven't. It's very difficult, particularly in our culture in the United States, to believe that anybody is in control of us besides us, much less something that we can't even see like a virus. So that's been our culture.
Yeah.
From the beginning. That's probably a whole new subject. But because that is our culture, we're in charge of us, we do what we choose, how very disconcerting to realize we don't choose. And something else has power over us. So we're all in that same boat. And I think the place that we have to start is to really revisit the last 2 weeks of conversation, which have been dealing with the grief that comes up, dealing with the triggers of loss. And I think we have to start there with acceptance because we have to remember we might be having an excellent day today. We might be realizing, gratitude and look, I have enough, or hey, I'm really worried about losing my job, but for today, I have plenty of food. It's all going to be okay. And then tomorrow, it just hits us in waves of grief. It's going to be the same for our kids. So I think step number one is to know that even if I'm feeling really good right now, I may not be feeling really good in an hour. And that's all right. And to address that and to allow that emotion to happen. Because when we allow that emotion, that, inner narrative to come into the light, we can take the power away from some of that negative thinking. Now, you and I have noticed that one of our children in particular, all of our kids have kind of cycled through, it's fine, it's okay, we're all home, we're having a good time, it's, who cares?
And then the crash.
I'm never going to see my friends again. And
go through about a day of that.
Right. Yeah. Crying and sadness and anger. And so we're noticing our kids cycle through it. And we had one just yesterday that we could tell something was wrong.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because each one of our kids display these different characteristics. And this child in particular wears the emotions outwardly like an open book. And we actually had to which this is also another topic of conversation. We actually had to make her verbalize what was going on. And there's a bigger story to that, but we knew that if she just held this in and bottled it up, it was going to spill out in another way, in another fashion, and that could be really, really ugly.
Right. Especially when we have kids that act out those feelings on other people, act out those feelings in self-harm.
Yeah.
We're all right here kind of watching it unfold. And so what we realized in that moment was that the simple answer of, I don't want to talk about it, it's fine, that wasn't going to fly, because we love our kids too much to let them sit in that. And so for this child, it was really important to get the words out.
Yeah.
And what the words were things that honestly I've been feeling myself.
Yeah.
I'm never going to see my friends ever again. I'm all alone in this world. What's the point of all the work I'm doing? Because this is going to be my life forever.
Especially when you have 3 weeks left of your senior year.
Oh my gosh.
3 weeks.
And so for this child, that kind of assessment of the situation is not all that different from how I have felt some days. I have had those feelings of, this is never going to end. This is terrible. We're going to lose everything. Everybody I know and love is going to die, and the whole world is going to fall apart. I get that.
Oh, yeah.
But, and you probably, if you listen to our podcast, heard us say this a million times, there is so much power when you say the words out loud and you see them for what they are, you hear them for what they are. And so as our child started to list those things off, what's the point of graduating anyway? We didn't contradict. We listen. Yeah, well, because I'm never going to see my friends, because I'm never going to go to college, because I'm never going to leave this property ever again, because I'm going to be stuck inside this house for the rest of my life. As she started to say the words out loud, you can see those words lose their power over her. And so that's one place that we really want to start with acceptance. Here we are. We don't really have a choice in this situation.
Yeah, you're rendered completely powerless. I mean, I think this is probably something, first of all, unprecedented because it's the whole world, which that's actually something that we have said to our kids, like this, we are not alone in this. Like, this is not just us. This is the whole world.
Right.
But this is something that we have absolutely no control over. It's not a virus that plays by the rules, and we can't tell local government, federal government what to do and when to do it and how to do it. And we are literally rendered powerless over this.
We can't make a cure.
No.
And we can't make a vaccine.
Right.
I'm really wishing I would have paid more attention in biology class and stuff like that right now. Maybe I could be helpful. But we can't. We don't have any power over fixing this. And so that's a pretty helpless feeling. And for our kids who have lost their first families, that is the most helpless feeling. Yeah. So I think often our families are then revisiting previous trauma when we are helpless, unable to help create a solution, unable to take power over something like this, unable to see it. I know one of the biggest things that we have said is we're exhausted from the hypervigilance of it. Oh. Washing the mail, we're not sure. We keep going back to a website groceries. And saying, how long does it live on paper? I can't remember. So I'm exhausting. Sanitizing envelopes and stuff. It's the hypervigilance of it. And that really returns our families to that sense of fearfulness. Mm-hmm. So I think we want to start by saying, as you accept this new normal for now, for however long this takes, part of that is going to be accepting that there are days where you feel exhausted by washing your groceries or exhausted from the worry about your family members or your children. Secondly, once we've accepted that there are going to be some hard days in this, there are going to be some feelings of hopelessness. The second is to start looking for the truth of the situation. So just like our daughter said out loud all the things that she was feeling, then there was truth in that. how many more days do you have of online learning? 8. At the point that we're recording this, our daughters have 8 more days of online learning of school ever. For the rest of their life, they are going to finish their senior year in 8 school days.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So what's the truth of it? I'm never going to be done. Yes, you are, in 8 school days. So the second part is that to accept the grief, one, but secondly, to find the truth in this. Is it true that I'm never going to see my friends again? That is not true.
No, there will be a day.
We are going to see our friends again. We are going to find a cure for this virus. We are going to find a vaccination. We are going to move forward. We won't live like this forever.
Right.
So find the truth in that. And then I think that leads us next to gratitude.
Yeah.
As we begin to find the truth in those narratives in our head, we also begin to see the truth in some other circumstances. And you were just pointing out one that we saw after 30 days of our children being stuck on this property together, fighting and frustrated.
Yeah. I mean, gratitude is messy because it's not like you can expect your kids to just suddenly give thanks for a situation, but for us as caregivers, as parents, we can. And one of the things that we just saw a couple of days ago is we arrived home from getting supplies, from getting groceries, and lo and behold, all of our kids are out jumping on our trampoline in our backyard together, laughing, all of them. And we
singing along with the radio.
We thought we would never see that. And then the next day, they all go trotting outside and they're like, we're going to work out together. And we about fell over, like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, we were like even saying, okay, seriously, what have you done with my children? Like, these are imposter children.
Right.
Because of the way that they were like loving each other and laughing and getting along, all of them, which is a rarity. And I think it also points to the fact that you gotta, if you're listening to this right now and you're like, I don't have anything to give thanks over, or you're kind of in that mode of thinking, we're never gonna get through this. This is awful. I can't accept my new normal. I think what we would tell you is you need to give it time too. Gratitude is not something that it's not something that you immediately in the middle of a circumstance think, oh, I need to be grateful. I need to give thanks. No. Gratitude is something that you need to work into. And the fact is, you guys, it has been 30 days for us since we quarantined. It was 30 days before we saw our kids doing that together, laughing and playing.
I don't want to say that they haven't played together in the past 30 days. They have.
They have, but
in the last, 3 or 4 days, we are watching them accept this new normal.
Right.
And so there are these moments of victory, of gratitude, for us as parents, as we, see them even check on each other. One kid starts to tank. Oh, I can't do this anymore. I can't be here anymore. And another child walks in the room and says, you doing okay? You want to go read a book with me?
Right.
You want to?
Right.
This was interesting. I saw one of our kids check on another child last night. The way that our bedrooms are configured, you can see into one of the kids' bedrooms from the family room. And one of our older kids just said, oh, hey, where's my brother? And that was a really different thing, but just kind of peeking in and realizing that the door was still open late at night. The bed was empty, and he'd gone to sleep in our bed to start out in our bed. But just even the thoughtfulness, just actually looking out for one another or noticing, something about, we've noticed that our kids are being more mindful of one another right now. Yeah. And that's a place, that just feels really good.
Yeah, and I'll say it again, if you feel discouraged because you're not seeing some of the things that we're talking about, I think the first thing we would remind you of is you need to give it time, especially if your family was not used to being together as much as you are now. This takes time to adjust. This takes time. It's a dance, and you have to learn to dance together and not step on one another's toes. And we're a month into this, and who knows how long we're going to be in this mode of living, but you have to give it time. And I think what you just said about, how our kids checked on one another and we're concerned, and even how our kids are moving into this new season of togetherness, it points to another thing that we want to encourage you on, and that is finding new opportunities. I've been thinking about this a lot. In fact, I think I'm even going to write an upcoming blog post on this. With this whole COVID-19, this whole pandemic, it's been devastating. It has changed life as we know it, and may change a lot of aspects of life for good. But there's a part of me that wants to say maybe there's opportunity here that we've never thought about before. Because for us, we were just talking about this earlier, our lives were, we were on the go all the time. All the time. We were transit. We were jumping on airplanes, traveling across the country. We were driving hundreds of miles a week on our cars.
Just back and forth to the kids' school.
Just back and forth to their school. And now we can't do that. And it has quote unquote forced us to stay home together. But I want to say, are we really forced? Because here's what I would put before you. There's a new opportunity here. Maybe this is an opportunity to sit down for family dinners, because we haven't done that very often. Maybe it's an opportunity to work on relationship with one another in a way we've never been able to work on it before. So I don't know. What do you think about that? I just think that we have I see a lot of opportunity here. And I don't want to be naive, and I don't want to be, rosy with this, but I know that some of you guys listening are in some crisis situations because of your children's behaviors or because of the special needs that your children have. But I want you to look past that if you can and see opportunity.
Yeah, I would say we're finding the opportunities in some of the most simple things. For instance, we were running all the time, and we're not doing that right now.
Yeah.
So the other day, yesterday or the day before, we said, actually it was our 19-year-old said, you know what, we should make a Lego project, which was just a funny thing for her to say. And so I was like, yeah, that would be kind of fun. So we decided to tell our younger kids to go grab all the Legos in the whole house.
And they did.
Which is a lot. We had a lot of Legos. We brought those out to the office where we have a big dining room table set up, and we spread Legos out. And the funny thing is, we never took the time to do something like that, because on a daily basis, we would do good things, not necessarily bad things. Go to the library, go visit friends. We went to every park in the state of Indiana constantly. We just find a new one. We'd go to it. All of that adventure, I missed that a little bit. But there was some adventure in hauling every Lego piece that the kids have ever collected in our 18 years of parenting, putting it all in one spot, seeing that massive amount of Legos, which is really out of control and ridiculous. And it felt new and different. And so I would say finding these opportunities, these things that I always wished we were going to do, wished we were going to weed the garden, wished we were going to plant vegetables. I can't tell you that our vegetables are actually going to grow, but we're trying it. It's these new opportunities to do things that aren't costing us any money.
It gets us outside too.
Yeah, we've just been doing a lot of
outside stuff. You guys may know this, but we live on a 4-acre farm out in the middle of nowhere. We're looking out of our office windows right now, and there's just fields. There's farmers, commercial farmers working on their fields. And we have a little hobby farm that we live on, but I'm looking around it early this morning before all of you guys were up, and the kids were up and moving, and I'm seeing all these projects we're actually getting done because we have to be here.
Right.
And
all the stuff
weather's
we kept
improving.
Saying,
yeah.
We're gonna move those fence pieces.
A lot of we're gonna.
We're gonna sort through the boys' Lego collection.
Yeah.
We're gonna, I don't know, just so finding those smaller opportunities. And we definitely don't want to paint this Pinteresty picture. Even as I'm looking around our office, I'm really glad this is a podcast and not like on
not
YouTube,
videocast.
because you would see
Well, it
the
is
projects
on. It is on YouTube, but no pictures, no
well,
video.
whatever that means,
Yeah,
the
no
video thing.
Yeah.
I'm glad you can't see everything else that still needs to be done. So we certainly don't want anyone to walk away feeling guilty that, quarantine hasn't proved to be super successful.
Yeah.
I'm talking about tiny little opportunities to do things that we just hadn't taken the time to do before.
Yeah. Well, and that brings us into a couple other things that we want to just encourage you with. And we kind of alluded to this earlier and how our lives have changed and what we can no longer do right now. But it leads us to a decision point. And that decision is we need to begin to decide what will stay the same when we do go back to quote unquote normal. What are we going to allow back into our lives? I mean, for us, we've already been talking about the hectic, demanding schedule that we were under before all this went down. Do we want to return to that?
I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
And I
Simple
would say
answer.
there are so many things in our everyday conversation that we say, I just don't want to do that again. I don't want to spend money the way we used to spend money. I don't want to take time away from our kids. I don't want to take time away from each other. I don't want to drive the car as much as we were driving it. So
anybody else getting like 4 weeks to the gallon?
Yeah, for real.
It's crazy.
What did we fill up for? 89 cents or something?
Oh my gosh, it was nuts. Yeah, it was seriously
89 cents a gallon the other day. And we
filled
were like,
up.
I feel like I'm in high school.
We filled up our car, and then we had a couple of gas cans for like our lawnmower and a few other things, a few of our outdoor equipment. I think the total was $39 for all of that. That's insane.
I want to say too, as we're thinking about the future, we know that things are changing. We know that families are without jobs. We know that, some of the things are changing and they're funny and we laugh about it and we think, oh my gosh, I haven't filled my car up for that since high school and I don't even have anywhere to go. I'm not allowed to go anywhere. And we laugh a little about it, but the truth is we can spend a lot of time worrying about what the future is going to look like for our families, for our country, for our world. And I would encourage our listeners to take a break from social media, take a break from the news, allow yourself to shut it off a little bit. The virus is still going to be there when you log back in tomorrow morning, unfortunately.
It's true.
But I would say, to some extent, some of that grief that we're reliving over and over, and our kids are, because our kids have access to, to the internet as well. Some of that, we're revisiting the trauma over and over and over every single day. And while we want to be aware of what's happening in our country, we want to be aware of what's happening in our world, it is also okay to say, I'm not going to flood my mind with every bad thing that might possibly happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to live in a realistic place, but I'm also going to shut that down and, and put my focus on something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we need to remember that we have the power moving forward to determine what life is going to look like and what we're going to do and what we're not going to do, and really how we're going to interact with our kids and what opportunities we're going to take, and really what's going to change out of this for the good. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're in a situation where things are changing and it's out of our control, but there are a lot of things that are in our control. And we have full control over how we're going to lead and love and guide our children. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. We're learning that too. This is something that we're all in together. So remember that. And parent, please remember to give yourself grace. You're not perfect. So if you screw up, if you stumble and fall like we all do, the most important thing you can do is get back up and keep moving forward. Well, listen, you guys, it's been great to have you join us for this podcast series. We hope you guys have gotten a lot out of it. Starting next week, we're launching a brand new season with a brand new interview with a good friend of ours who is a an adult adoptee as well as an adoptive mother, former foster parent. She's got a lot of great insight. We hope you guys can join us for that. And make sure you stop over to our podcast website, browse all of our featured resources, catch up on past episodes, and we will see you next time on the Honestly Adoption Podcast.